I want to go back to, okay, the basis of chi,
Hmm.
the three treasures.
Yeah.
I think most people in the West have no idea of the three treasures that this exists and how profound it is for understanding the human physiology
Hmm.
from a Taoist perspective.
Yep.
Could you tell us about it?
Okay, so we have Shen, right? And this is when we were just speaking earlier about the mutual dependent of mind and body, right? Because we separate those things. It's like people either doing mindset work or they're doing body work. Like they don't use the body as kind of the interface for both of those things. Like we were saying, the possibilities and the alchemy that is possible from alchemizing the human physiology for mastery is beyond, right? And the three treasures really speak to that. They speak to Shen, which speaks to the five spirits. We say in Taoist kind of five element theory, and the five spirits are kind of different layers of consciousness, I would call, accessible through the human physiology and beyond, right? So every element has its own unique reflection of mind and consciousness and spirit in that. It's kind of the fragments of the human soul that live in body. Um, so Shen really speaks to that. It is the unique thread of consciousness in somebody's physiology. It is the I am, that only you have. Split between these five different components within the human physiology. And then we have chi, but it's like everybody that has digestive issues says they have brain fog, right? It's that gut to brain access. It's you can't separate the intellect from the digestive tract because even to experience the intellect means that you have a very clear pathway to psychological digestion. You're able to psychologically digest information. You're able to plant a seed. You're able to digest it, go through a process of gestation and bring the plant to harvest, right? Even ideation is the same thing, right? It's a process of psychological digestion. But if you have gastric issues, you don't have that psychological digestion. You get brain fog, right? So even like with concepts like PTSD, which is very real, it's very real, will be experienced differently by different people based on embodied deficiencies or fullness. And you see that clinically, like in clinic. People that have certain types of looping PTSD cycles will also have the same internal patterns going on. So that in itself shows the connection between our kind of chronic looping mind states and emotions and the human physiology. And Carl Jung talks about this, in
Today on the Human Game podcast, I have on someone who's spoken at some of the most prestigious universities in the world, like Oxford, the dual PhD, Dr. Michelle Patrick. Now, what really interests me about Dr. Michelle is if you know me, you know that I'm really interested in the truth and exploring the truth within many different traditions around the world. And that's something she's done for many years, as she even took refuge in Buddhism and also studied with Sufi mystics. And so today I sit down to explore all the different wisdoms she's picked up over the years, and I found it incredibly fascinating. We spent a good amount of time in this podcast talking about the Taoist perspective on the nature of reality, and I'm not talking about surface level, I'm talking about deep, deep knowledge that most people, especially in the West, are unaware even exists. I'm talking the three treasures. I'm talking Taoist five element theory, ancient wisdom that we're bringing back in this episode. And I mean, we went for hours, so there's a lot more than just that in this. We also spent a good amount of time talking about all the different traps out there when it comes to what I call false light loops. And we discuss how that's rampant in biohacking and wellness and in so many different areas. But you can check the bookmarks below for specific topics and jump around if you'd like, or just chill with us and take in the whole episode, as I found it massively worth to do this podcast and to sit with Doc. This is honestly one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. But without further ado, here's Dr. Michelle. We made it.
finally.
You came from across the world, essentially,
Yeah.
synchronistically meeting.
Hmm.
I'm really glad to be here with you.
I'm very glad to be here with you in all of your genius.
I'm telling you, I do think, our friend Eisen said that you're the most high level person he knows. And I can understand why, after we've spent some time together and the way that you operate in the world. And one thing that really interests me about you is the way that you see the human body.
Mm.
And I feel it's so in alignment with what I'm doing here at the human game,
Mhm.
because it's like you understand how one can see the body as an interface,
Yeah, totally.
you know?
It is an interface. I feel like, separation is one of the highest deceptions of human society. And it's so funny how we bring that into the very thing that we're experiencing it in, which is the body, right? But there is no separation between consciousness. Matter requires consciousness, and consciousness requires matter to manifest. Don't you think it's
Mhm. 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 I'm I'm really curious how you see, it does genuinely seem like there's some sketchy things happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's kind of a stage, as Shakespeare said, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of people struggling to navigate
Mm-hmm.
the terrain
Yeah.
of this reality.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are some things that are some foundational pieces for you in the way in which you move in the world?
Mm. Um, well, not bypassing my body being a huge one of them. I think it's
Yeah, that's the main one, right?
yeah, it's interesting how you say, people are struggling to kind of negotiate and live in this terrain of existence at the moment. But if you can't live in the body that you were given by creation to, architect the creation of reality, then you sure as hell will not be able to live in in it as it unveils, and I think a part of watching this kind of shit show unveil itself, which is, it's all a higher plan in my humble know nothing opinion, but is to disattach humanity from the body. And we've seen that in kind of removing the ideals of sovereignty and the feeling of sovereignty in your own kind of unique vessel. And I think that that plays a major role in the disassociation of people with their reality and their kind of disassociation of mind, you know? So I think getting in the body is one thing, or learning the basics about your human physiology and anatomy should be something that comes before learning how to count, as far as I'm concerned. And it's just so fascinating to me how we managed to gather kind of this kaleidoscope of such immense wisdom. Yet a lot of people don't know where their kidneys are.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
scary to me. That's scary. And I think that it's unbelievable what humanity has done, in this reality, and continues to do and continues to build and architect. But I really truly see the body as the first tool of mastery.
Mhm. So when you speak upon mastery, tell me what mastery means to you.
Hmm. Mastery, I think, means to me a superhuman level of self-awareness. Um, because I feel like we can quote master, and words are a casualty, multitudes of things in our human form, but I think it starts with a deep embodied self-awareness, self-observation, you know? So to be deeply in one's self-awareness of whatever it is that you're dedicating yourself to at the time, and mine happens to be the human body. Well, not just the body, but the interface that is the human physiology.
Mhm.
Mm.
So we have we have that baseline understanding, I think both of us, that words aren't going to capture the whole thing,
Yeah.
but we can attempt to.
Yes.
But I feel okay, when we're looking at mastery, you have self-awareness.
Hmm.
What's that next step in mastery?
Self-observation,
Mhm.
for sure.
Mhm.
Radical self-observation.
I feel like for me, I spent a lot of time observing but still being stuck in patterns,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know. I think that's part of mastery.
Absolutely. Definitely.
What would you say to somebody who's stuck in that? It's like they're aware,
Hmm.
they're aware of what's happening, but yet they're still participating in the structures that keep them.
Indoctrinated, enslaved.
Yeah,
That
that
part.
that part.
um, I think it's all part of the graceful journey of unveiling. I think that being stuck is a fundamental part of the self-awareness. I don't think that you can have one or the other. It's kind of like yin and yang theory. It's mutually dependent and intertwined. Although order out of chaos is not really a term that we like to say because it's more associated with the powers that be.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that it's a fundamental point of evolution for human consciousness. So I think it's okay to be lost in the structures and the chaos and the mess because at the end of the day, well, hopefully we like to think no matter the timestamp on it, and everybody's timestamp is different because we're all unique threads of consciousness, the light of human awareness will kind of show you the way home.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think it's accurate to say that the interface, when we're talking about the human body, the human physiology, would you say it's accurate if we have, for example, in the West, this model of taking symptoms? This is my experience. Tell me what you think about this. I mean, you're
Hmm.
going to know way more, but this is my surface level take, right?
Yeah.
You have this symptom based so that you continue to take so that they make money.
Yeah.
You're somebody that what I appreciate you is you've studied many different things,
Hmm.
right? And from our conversations, a lot of that has been around Taoist theory.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about the difference between Taoist practices for vitality
Yes.
and the difference between that and the West, I'm thinking elemental makeup in a similar way to Ayurveda, but different.
Hmm.
I would love to know how you see the difference between Ayurveda and Taoist.
I think that it's kind of like all of the beautiful sacred texts that are on the in available to us.
Hmm.
I think that they are speaking the same message in different languages for different people to gravitate towards and understand. Like in Ayurveda, we have air. And in Chinese medicine, kind of five element theory, instead of air, we have metal element. However, the organs of the metal element are the lungs and the large intestine. So you can see how there is kind of this mutual understanding, but with a different kind of vernacular of explanation. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that we have all of these different methodologies, and theories of one size does not fit all because we all have different fingerprints and we are not all one size. So um, the scripture of Ayurveda might be more appealing to somebody who really cannot feel comfortable with Chinese medicine, but it's all leading the same way home. So I don't think as far as differences, I don't like to think in terms of differences, but more in association, and I think that they both speak the same eloquent language of possibility and really looking at the human physiology as a reflection of the divine and navigating that through biology, but in totally different ways. And whilst I absolutely love Ayurveda, I deeply have a deep, deep love for Chinese medicine. You know?
Yeah. So on that thread, what draws you to the Taoist five element theory? What speaks to you about that so much that like this is from what I've seen a core
Mhm.
of what you do?
Well, actually, it's story time then.
Please.
So,
Hmm.
um, my father was in the American military, so I was a military child. And what really fascinated me about my father is that he was always so unhealthy, but he had the most unbelievable book collection of like different health practices, different herbologies. After he passed away from Alzheimer's 2 years ago. And I collected a lot of his like books that he had collected, most of his life. And I remember when I was around 11 and I was in American school, and they used to come and test our cholesterol. Thanks, US government. Seems a bit strange now, doesn't it? Yeah, right. Um, so they used to come and test us for different things. And I remember when I was 11, I was athletic, I was a ballet dancer, I was all of the things. I like to think I was super healthy, right? And they told me I had high cholesterol, and I was absolutely devastated. And I kind of run home that day totally confused and like looking at all of the things in the cupboards, all of the food products, and then reading the ingredients and being like, holy shit, none of this is actually food. So from a very young age, I had a curiosity in these things, and at that point, I kind of became a little bit obsessed with health and from a nutritional perspective, because I was concerned that I was 11 and I had high cholesterol. So I kind of waded into my dad's office area with all of his books. And I came across Dr. Stephen Chang's book on internal exercising. And I pulled out this book, and it was just this unbelievable book of theory on five element theory, basically, and organ systems and Chinese medicine basics. And I know it sounds strange for an 11-year-old to start reading those kind of books, but that's exactly what I did. So I was obsessed with Dr. Stephen Chang's work. He had a beautiful collection of books, like one on internal exercising, like internal qigong, one on nutritional theory from a five element perspective, one on sexology, and then as I got into my later teens, I kind of started exploring the idea of Taoist sexology. And it all just kind of merged beautifully. But that's when my love of five element theory really, really came about, because we are not separate from nature in any way, shape, or form. We are it. And I love how it's such an ancient theory that really connects all things. It predates the I Ching. So, um,
Do you know the date on I Ching?
oh my God, not the exact date. Do you know the date?
Brother.
Tell us the dates.
What, the I Ching?
Hmm.
I dash Ching.
Ching.
Yeah.
The hexagram. So five element theory and like yin yang theory, like the Tai Chi is like based on the triograms, right? And that predates the hexagrams of the I Ching.
Yeah.
Um, so it really fundamentally speaks to universal law and the way things are fundamentally connected, especially within the human systems, and reflected outwards. And I was just so fascinated by that. I was fascinated with the idea that aspects of the mind, which I'm sure, we've all been grown up and kind of reared thinking that the mind is this separate kind of machine of the human beingness, when really it's intertwined with the human physiology. And I really found that quite phenomenal. And that was, yeah, the beginning of my love.
Mm. Very nice. It reminds me, I just put out that sketch and I talked about the great inversion
Yes.
and how they put Descartes in there and how
Yes.
he split the world
Yeah.
into the Cartesian
Mm-hmm.
dualism,
Yep.
and that fundamentally started to really affect the way that we see the world. And then
Yeah,
it's machine
totally.
like, and then there is a level of, I think, for me, I love Taoism because it really speaks to, there is harmony
Yes.
that is there
Mhm.
and it's actually happening, and it's actually about aligning with that. If you can see it, if you're willing to let go in order to
Mhm.
see that, to be in alignment with the Tao. And so when I think about this theory, I'm interested to go more into the details of
Hmm.
like, I would love to go through the steps of
Hmm.
like how does it begin,
Hmm.
and where does it take you? I think we've had conversations because for me, I'm going through my own thing, and we've talked about, you
Little
know,
bit.
trying to get I'm burning hot recently. Right.
Yeah,
Isn't that
quite
true?
literally. Yeah.
That's actually what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I'm noticing hotness like on my scalp and having some things, and we're noticing a potential issues going on.
Hmm.
And so I would love to kind of go back to the beginning of like, okay, we understand where it comes from now. Do we have a date on that, bro?
Mm.
The 10th and 4th centuries BC. Okay. So when you got into the theory then,
Hmm.
the Taoist theory, what would you say is the foundational set point of how it works? Like if you were to describe it.
First and foremost, really delving in and exploring Tai Chi theory, like yin and yang theory, because I think before even building on any kind of foundations, you have to lay down the blueprints, and that really is the blueprint to all things, and especially within, if we're talking about five element theory from a embodied perspective, understanding that everything is yin and yang in the body, like the mind is a more ethereal form of chi, but it still exists. You just may not be able to lick it and taste it and tell me the flavor of it. But it's a lesser density of chi, whereas the human physiology is a denser form of chi. So the mind will be reflected in yang, and the body and all of its makeups will be reflected as yin, essentially. However, because there's always yin inside yang and yang inside yin, for affinity, then the body also encapsulates different yin and yang within the organs, right? So, really understanding that yin and yang theory, like the difference between blood and fluids and organs, which one's more dense, which one is a more ethereal form of chi. So, from a physical perspective, I'd say yin and yang theory is like an absolute must when it comes to five element theory. And then organs theory, separating the human physiology within those two paradigms of yin and yang, and also understanding that everything is mutually dependent and intertwined. So, therefore, the human body doesn't become separatist in any way, shape, or form. It becomes a living interface, a living ecology, a reflection of creation and nature itself. So, I'd say yin and yang theory to start with. And then organ theory, separating the organs into yin and yang, and then which organs go into which elements, and within this theory there are five. There is fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And within every single element you have yin and yang organs, and then you also have a reflective aspect of the psyche that is governed or supported by those said organs. So when you were saying about mastery earlier, I think I'm a student of body because I'm a steward of creation. I'm a student of God. I'm a student of mind. And I really truly believe that the body becomes a tool of mastery, not just in, wiping away and continuously chasing ridiculous symptomatology and pathology, which I think that we've all been kind of indoctrinated to accept the degeneration of the body in that way, shape, or form. But the body as a tool of mastery to be able to refine different aspects of the psyche that you may need. You may say, okay, well, I need to record 10 podcasts this week. I need to access a certain form of my intellect. My memory needs to be on point. My psychological digestion needs to be secure this week. And then you can access kind of the energetics and the physiology of the stomach and the spleen and the earth element to do so. So therefore, we come out of not just activating the inner physician as far as alleviating, avoiding, and kind of pushing the symptomatology to the side, but you actually become an architect of your own reality if you so choose it.
Hmm. It's like what you're saying is instead of waiting till things go wrong, you activate it to its highest potential. And you
Mm,
focus on doing that rather than waiting for the symptom of something being bad, right?
totally.
I mean, that's the approach when it comes to
Yeah.
the interface.
Yeah. 100%. Totally. And also, um, Yeah, it's the idea of symptomatology is becoming unbearable to me, and it is very real. There is very real suffering going on, you know, and we do have to take some responsibility for our physiology in that retrospect. Um, but it is so damaging. It is so damaging to live in a reality where sickness is something that you hold to a higher regard than possibility. You know, we accept it. We accept degeneration. We accept symptoms. The amount of patients I see in clinic who, when you're, doing a diagnosis with them or questioning their systems, don't even realize that they're having headaches every day, or quantify their digestive issues that they've had for 10 years as normal. It's like, oh yeah, but that's normal for me. There's nothing normal about about being ill, fatigued, tired, and in pain. That is not the burden of human physiology. I think that maybe it's an opportunity for order out of chaos, and the self-realization that is possible from those moments. But I definitely don't think it's something we should accept as flesh and bone.
I think that's part of the agenda, is to get us to
Oh
accept
my
it as
gosh,
normal.
absolutely.
So it's like we're we're all degenerates. It's just normal.
It's just normal. That's just what happens.
Guess this is all what we are. It's like, and then we all live from that state, thinking we just, when we lose this, we got to try and get it back.
Hmm.
I have family members that are like that.
Yeah.
They wait. I think this is like the core code that I'm realizing. It's like people are waiting. And I've done this within my own experience, but I'm waiting for it to get worse in some sense until I address it, because at times in my life I was unwilling to go through the psychological change that was required to operate at that higher state. And so
Yes.
then there it's I'm trying to think if there's a name of this paradox.
Mm.
I can't remember the name of it. It has to do with if it has to get bad enough for you to want to change.
Hmm.
And I think that
Yeah,
what you're saying.
like not good enough to keep.
What's that?
Not good enough to keep.
I'm not sure. It's basically things get when things aren't bad enough, you don't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then eventually you do,
And then eventually you do.
because you get shit on.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it's the reality of
Order out of chaos. That's
many
what it
people's
is.
life. I mean, how many people I know
Yeah.
that just are in that state where,
Yeah.
and that's the symptom state.
That's the symptom state of life. Like, moreover, right? It's like, because everything reflects outwards. And that's another thing I believe about the human physiology, is that not only can you change your reality from it, but you change the reality. Imagine if everybody's decided that they were this sovereign, embodied, authentic reflection of divinity, and the body was this chariot of divinity, instead of looking at it like some kind of meat suit that drags your ass up in the morning. And, that would change a lot of things on the planet.
Yeah, I think there can be like spiritual language. This
Yeah.
spiritual language that is disempowering, but
Oh
is
my
like
God.
disguised as enlightened.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think a meat suit is one of those, because it's almost like
Yes.
you're using the term of meat suit to make it seem like it's not legit or fucking
Exactly.
sick, or not
Exactly.
sick, but great,
Great.
phenomenal
Phenomenal.
technology,
Yeah, it's technology.
divine technology that was
Totally
given
is.
to us by the creator. And now
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you're just in a meat suit on a floating
Yeah,
rock. You know what I'm saying, dude?
exactly.
It's like, shut the fuck up.
It's so
on that.
wild. It's so wild. Like, it's so wild to me.
Yeah.
And even watching, I'm just going to keep it real, watching this biohack. I don't even like that word. There's something about it. Maybe it's just me. The word hacking.
That came up
Like,
before I started the human game, the biohack. So
really?
I didn't coin that term. That one, and I feel like it's skewed.
Yes,
That's what you're
yes,
saying,
yes,
right?
yes. And also it highlights to me our obsession with our mortality. It doesn't feel healthy to me. There's nothing healthy about it. It's like I want to I want to activate and access the secrets of the universe now. Like, I don't want to be 125. Like, and I just find it fascinating how it really highlights this obsession with mortality. Do you know what I mean by that?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And none of these biohacking dudes look healthy, bro. Can we just talk about
They
that?
look like vampires type
Like,
shit.
what is
You know
happening here? Like, I don't understand. And I don't understand. And I will just say it as it is because it's something that really bothers me is that we have pharmaceuticals, we've had various events happening over the planet, which have made us kind of hopefully sharpen our awareness in those kind of, those backstreet controlled areas. But now we have industrialized wellness, which is just as bad. It's the new pharma. It's absolutely wild out there. And just like you have like car boot salesmen peddling pharmaceuticals, you now have really unhealthy looking people like promoting something called biohacking. What is going on here? Like, what is going on here?
What's going on?
Tell me the things,
Do you want me to
Yoda.
tell you?
Tell me the things.
I think I got this one. I've been talking shit about this frame for a minute. Basically, the obsession is to disempower. Biohacking can be used. I'm going to say it that way. There can be people that use it integrally, but I would say the majority of people are using it as some form of escape.
Yeah.
And the idea, the corrupt implant of biohacking is to disempower you by convincing you that living longer is better than living fuller.
Right.
Or more in your power, or having an experience now.
Yeah.
And it's the same future tripping rat race wheel that the business culture promotes. If you just work for this long, you can have a better life eventually.
Yeah.
And then this one is just a slight tweak
into
you can live longer now.
Yeah. You can live
But
longer
what's
now.
your quality of life? Are you just going to be fucking Brian Johnson indoors, never going outside? You're scared of the sun, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's exactly what it is. It's like, then you become scared. Part of that tweak to me is then you become, in some sense, anti-nature.
I was just about to say that.
Right.
I was just about to say that, right? So I'm all down for evolution. All down. Everything is in a state of evolution anyway. I always say that to people. Like, we're sitting here right now, our cells are in cell division. It's happening, whether we like it or not. No, evolution is not waiting for humanity. It is happening, So technological advancements, great, but I find it so wild that when it comes to the human physiology, which is a form of nature, we're replacing our relationship with, our innate environment with these ridiculous technological advancements that pull us further away from the reconnection that desperately needs to happen for us to be on the right side of evolution. Natural selection is a thing.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So in that particular realm, I just find it wild. Like, go outside. What are we doing? Why? Why am I hanging lights in my bed? Go outside.
Because it's anti-nature.
It's totally anti-nature. And like, instead of, and I don't want to speak for people because everybody has, their right to whatever moments that they're in right now. But like, even quantum biology, if people would, like, Dr. Catherine Clinton, I love Dr. Catherine Clinton. I don't know if you know Dr. Catherine Clinton. Yeah. I'm actually just about to record some modules for her Quantum Biology Institute, which I'm very excited about. Like, if people stepped away from kind of trying to develop this kind of obsession with the technological advancements in human health and just took it back to basics, like the basics of quantum biology, again, we can totally change the interface of how this looks for people, how health is really experienced by people, like on a very basic perspective. But that would take knowing your physiology, quite literally, which we don't.
That's what we're trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
I think part of that vein is you hit a really important point. evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I think evolution is a very skewed term
Mm-hmm.
for humans because another kind of corrupt, what I call a false light loop in the human game model, is evolution as synthetic technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what this looks like is biohacking, the false light loop of an aspect of biohacking
Mm-hmm.
would be to create the or to feed you the idea that evolution is actually by adding to your body,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
It's not by here's the difference. It's not by connecting more to the universal intelligence, to the Tao.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by working with the organic technology that
Mm.
you were given by birth.
Mm-hmm.
It's adding a chip,
Yeah.
adding this,
Yeah.
adding more extractive elements.
Yes.
And what that looks like is how many supplements are these dudes taking? Fucking vampire type shit.
I
You
feel
don't go in
like
the sun, you take 1,000
it's
supplements.
so wild.
What are we doing?
It's so wild. And it's so every subject that you're bringing up, like it's just about to come out of my mouth as you say it as well. This is so funny. But when you were just saying about like the taking, so even from a supplementary view, right? If you think about the energy output of the human physiology, it's a lot, right? The human physiology has to put out, it's a battery, it's one big giant battery, electrons and whatnot. And a lot of people are functioning on deficiency, on empty batteries, not just from a cellular perspective, but from an organ perspective. Like people's organs are deficient. And a lot of the day-to-day symptomatology that people accept in their day-to-day lives is actually an organ function problem if you get to the bottom of it. So when it comes to like high end of supplementation, just say that you're already deficient, like your liver has actually got deficiency, then you're taking all of these supplementations that continuously put your liver in overdrive, put the enzymes in overdrive every single day, and before you know it, you're taking away from the body's natural capacity and replacing it synthetically, because that's why when you take people's supplements away, they feel terrible. They feel terrible. It's like, oh, I'm taking this every day. Why? Why do you need to take it every day? Why is your physiology not in a state of adherence to your unique environment? And then we believe the degeneration that, oh my God, everything's so polluted, we're under attack at all times, and we are. But then that is the natural state of evolution, is right? Is that the human physiology has adapted to these unfortunate conditions. Otherwise, none of us would be here. None of us would be here if the human body hasn't adapted to all of these fear theories that we are continuously fed. The human body and the human experience is not that weak at all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important to hit on that equation there because it's like I'm seeing how other people are perceiving this
Mm.
and the fundamental difference. Tell me if this is correct. It's
Mhm.
like, and I did this, I was taking a bunch of supplements. The supplements actually are putting your organ into a worse state
Mhm.
because of what it takes to transmute and
Exactly.
alchemize those supplements.
Absolutely.
And so when you're taking a bunch of supplements, but your body is already out of whack, it actually might be doing the opposite. That really sucks.
It does suck, doesn't it?
It would be easy if it was just like, hey, take this, you're good. But it's profound in a sense because it actually asks us to tune in instead of just
Mhm.
taking another thing to try to fix it.
Yeah.
And to ask how it got that way in the first place. Like for example, with me, why am I running hot in the first place? What am I
Mhm.
holding on to?
Mhm.
So let's go through that if you don't mind. Like, so
Mhm.
for me, when I was running hot, if somebody is running hot, it's actually like heat.
Mm.
You were telling me about the blood, and it has to do with the chi in the blood. And
Yeah.
yeah, tell me more about.
You are more like an empty heat kind of person.
Okay, you hear
He's
that?
sitting up straight.
I'm just empty. Basically, this guy's just empty. He's got nothing.
You work too hard, actually.
Work too hard. You should see all those clips I put out though. They're pretty, they're pretty legit. You know
I
what I'm
know
saying?
they're amazing, but you like go 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 all the time. So what I felt in your pulse, and I think what your constitution leads to is like a yin deficiency, like a kidney liver yin deficiency. And that is what causes these kind of slight heat symptoms. Because if there is a deficiency in yin, which is like the cooling aspect, just to go very lightly, right? Because it's a very deep, complex theory. Um, then if the yin, because everything is mutually dependent and intertwined, if the yin is not holding stability in your physiology, then yang is going to start rising. There's going to be an imbalance in those two kind of modalities in your system. And your kidney pulse is super deficient, like ultra, ultra, ultra deficient. And some of the things that you have going on are reflective of like a kidney yin deficiency. And people that have a kidney yin, the kidneys actually detest modern day living. So they detest, when we're overworking in any way, shape, or form. They detest when you work out too much. I work out a lot and I have to continuously keep on top of my kidney chi because otherwise it becomes very, very, very deficient. And then through the 5 element kind of theory, because the kidneys are our primordial parents in the human physiology. However, they are the mother of the liver and the gallbladder. The kidney, the water element, is the mother of the wood element, which is the liver and the gallbladder. And I think this the kind of stagnation that we're feeling in your liver, on your liver pulse, and in some of the things that you have got going on is a direct result of the kidney deficiency. It's not like a primary, if you know what I mean. So even with symptoms, like people's symptoms, and we're talking about this idea of evolution again, right? Things are continuously moving. So if you accept something as normal in your physiology, it's going to keep mutating and transforming. It doesn't just stay where it is. So in your kind of organ systemics, I think that it started in the kidneys and then it's kind of slowly progressing to other organ systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking that in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about how I need to hire an editor. For those that don't know, I edit everything. Everything that you've seen up to this point on any platform, it's me. Okay? There's not some hoser in the Philippines doing it. Okay? So I think that would be helpful. But
Are you saying that you're going to have to edit? You're going to have to do lots of editing of this podcast? What are you saying, Nick?
I'm saying in the past, throughout this entire history of the things I've done online, I've always edited it. And that's why I'm overworking, probably.
Oh, yes.
That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. I'm also now thinking about how I want to go back to, okay, the basis of chi,
Mm-hmm.
the 3 treasures.
Yeah.
I think most people in the West have no idea of the 3 treasures that this exists and how profound it is for understanding the human physiology
Mm-hmm.
from a Taoist perspective.
Yep.
Could you tell us about it?
Okay, so we have Shen, right? And this is when we were just speaking earlier about the mutual dependent of mind and body, right? Because we separate those things. It's like people either doing mindset work or they're doing body work. Like they don't use the body as kind of the interface for both of those things. Like we were saying, the possibilities and the alchemy that is possible from alchemizing the human physiology for mastery is beyond, right? And the 3 treasures really speak to that. They speak to Shen, which speaks to the 5 spirits. We say in Taoist kind of 5-element theory. And the 5 spirits are kind of different layers of consciousness, I would call, accessible through the human physiology and beyond, right? So every element has its own unique reflection of mind and consciousness and spirit in that. It's kind of the fragments of the human soul that live in body. So Shen really speaks to that. It is the unique thread of consciousness in somebody's physiology. It is the I am, that only you have, split between these 5 different components within the human physiology. And then we have chi, which is source. It is the unseen all things. It is the one. It is the battery, the life force of existence itself, you know? And I mean, how else can we really explain chi? How do we explain life, you
The
know?
Force.
The force. Yes. Ah, yes, Yoda. It is the force. The force, you know, and also how we can generate the force within the human physiology, right? The state of the vitality of the human physiology, and therefore the Shen and the human mind. And then we have blood, you know, which is holy water. As far as I'm concerned, it is holy water, you know, and not only is it the hydrating fluid of the fertile soils of our human makeup, but it is also a container of memory, you know, of all things, of mind, you know, and they say that the Shen lives in the blood, which is attributes of the psyche. And what's fascinating about that is that we can get all deep and, you know, holy and talking about the Shen, but when it comes to blood deficiency, right? People that suffer with blood deficiency have kind of symptomatologies of mind as well. They get depression, you know, they have memory issues. Um, and within this theory, they say the Shen, so attributes of the psyche, live in the blood. So if the blood is not full, vivacious, healthy, you know, and the right temperature, then it starts to kind of distort the mind, essentially. So I think that, yeah, it's when it comes to the three treasures and of vital essence, you know, and everything that is so vital within the human body, if we can kind of access and work with these things, then that's where alchemy is possible. Internal alchemy, baby.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah. It is. It's internal alchemy. When we speak about the alchemists, when we speak about the philosopher's stone, you know, it's, to me anyway, it's really that capacity of really experiencing the full depth of the preciousness of the moment as a reflection of divinity, you know, and using the technology that you were given to do that with.
And that's what the three treasures is like expanding and understanding how that works,
Yes,
right?
totally.
I had a friend who was telling me about how the three treasures, it's like it comes they're kind of like on top of each other.
Hmm.
They transmute into, and then one the chi, if it's not correctly, this is kind of leading into the kidney thing
Hmm.
potentially. If the chi is not being correctly processed, that is like causing the deficiency in some sense.
Hmm.
It does it come down like that, would you say?
Because Shen is on top. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what also interests me about you is you took refuge as a Buddhist.
I did.
You
I
know, the
did.
thing about you is that you have all this lore. You got so much lore.
I do
You-
all the things. I wanted to know all the things.
yeah.
I've done many things. You would be like, what?
Yeah, Eisen's like, she's got all the XP points. And I'm like, yeah, she does. Because it's funny, we're thinking about traveling and yeah, you've been to a lot of places and you've had so many experiences. I'm
Mm.
very curious. As somebody who was born in the US and has lived here, spent most of his time in the US, what was it like to take refuge as
Mm.
a Buddhist at an actual Buddhist temple
Hmm.
in the legit experience?
Yeah, it was the legit experience. It was, you know,
And do you want anything to drink? Are you good right now? You want
I'd like a tea,
some tea?
please.
All right. All right, we're going to take a tea break. And real quick, I just want to let you know that Dr. Michelle is going to be one of my expert facilitators on my Master the Storm 21-day training that begins on 7/7, which is very soon. And she's going to be covering the body as an interface to help you to master the storm of attacks that are upon your body so that you can operate at a high level in the human game. And I'm bringing her on because I believe she is the one that is the best for the job of covering this topic to help you to transform quickly. Check below in the description to join and to learn how to master the storm of this reality when we're on the brink of who knows what's going to happen. This is the place to train to master it. You're not trying to escape the game. It's a very different approach to master your ability to navigate the external and internal attacks that are being directed at you. And that is what they fear the most. You can join now below. All right, tell me about what that experience of what I just asked you was.
I would like to say before I go into that,
Sure.
that I love to study all things. I am a perpetual student of all things. I find I am in absolute awe of all of the theories and insights and spiritualities that exist on the planet in order to bring us into our highest kind of fractal of uniqueness, you know? And I had a deep affinity with multiple things. Like I was obsessed with Sufism, you know, and I spent a lot of time with a Sufi sheikh just because I wanted to know all of the things, you know, and I wanted to understand even the Quran from a Sufi perspective. And when it came to Buddhism, it's just, you know, from picking up that book from a really, really young age, I was always just so fascinated with the idea of it, you know?
Which book?
And the Dr. Stephen Chang internal exercising book,
Gotcha.
which led me to kind of 5-element theory and the idea of internal harmony from an embodied perspective, you know, and really experiencing the idea of enlightenment through the embodied form. And I read every book. I wanted to know all the things, but I also knew that there were a multitude of things that I wouldn't have access to. And that's why I was an active initiate of Buddhism, you know? So I took refuge. I took my mother along. And we took refuge into Tibetan Buddhism under Lama Yishi. Unbelievable.
In Tibet?
No, not in Tibet. Actually, in a Tibetan Buddhist temple in London.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There are some absolutely phenomenal Tibetan Buddhist temples in the UK, linked between Scotland and London. Really, really beautiful. And yeah, it was wonderful. You know, it was wonderful. And that further opened me up down the path of studying mind, you know? But actually, and if I can be candidly honest, I also found it quite fascinating how even within kind of the Buddhist, and I think within a lot of these things there is doctrine as well. And I'm personally, you know, a bit of a rebel. And doctrine doesn't sit well with me. So there were definitely aspects of it that I without any disrespect at all, you know, didn't really connect with. But the philosophical attributes of what was possible through mind, absolutely, like definitely. But what I did find as well, that there are a lot of unhealthy people that are students of Buddhism as well, because I find that when we get too separatist again, like in one way or the other, then something's getting neglected, you know. And if sickness evolves, I am not of I want to be really careful how I say this, but then not at the same time. I'm not a believer that sickness is a route to enlightenment. You know, I don't believe it's something that we have to accept. And I think it's something that is totally avoidable.
How do we avoid it? Don't be a piece of shit.
I think from really being students of wholeness, you know, and I think that being ill and a lot of things that I've seen in patients and clients and in clinic over the years is that even that separatist mentality, when it comes to the body and the mind, right? Between the body and the mind, we also extend to our environments. So the terrain of the body is an antenna, because the body is the interface to the human game, right? So it is the antenna. It's affected by all frequencies, the frequencies of your relationships, the frequencies of your home, the frequency of your workplace, not just the frequency of your food, or what you're drinking. And I think that because we've become so separatist in our kind of inner standing of the human experience, that we don't take into consideration all of those things when quantifying the root causes of illness. There are a lot of people that would say, I have the perfect diet that I've seen in clinic. I've had the perfect diet. I meditate 10 times a day, and I've still manifested this illness. Why me? But they have been in an unhappy marriage for 10 years. But that's the one thing they're not willing to change, but they can go plant-based, but they can't leave the unhappy situation. And all of those things have an innate, mutually dependent, intertwining relationship with how our terrain is working or not working.
Yes. Reminds me of Paul Saladino, that guy. Reminds me of this guy because it's like I haven't heard that guy talk about philosophy or the way that he sees the world outside of food.
Right.
It's the only thing. You're going to be so much healthier if you just meat and fruit.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And maybe there's other things too, but it's like this over-exaggeration, over-focus on one aspect of life.
Exactly.
Paul Saladino to me is like the guy who levels up one stat in the game, and he just focuses on like one, and that's like the same idea with Brian Johnson.
Yes.
It's like let's level up only one aspect, and there's another way.
Don't you think that's part of the coercion, though? I think that's part of the coercion of like the manipulation of human potential, is that if we can create these divisions between our idea of wholeness and then kind of streamline the awareness, like take away our capacity to be deeply aware and focusing it on one pinpoint rather than an integrated environment, then we're stunting human potential massively.
Yeah. It's definitely part of it.
Yeah, massively. But we just don't want to be great. Like it feels like that. The quote, we are scared of our own greatness. Because what is really possible when you activate, when you come fully online in your human experience and completely kind of open and broaden your peripheral vision of this divine engineering that we're living in.
It's almost like we are afraid as humans of carrying the weight of our own potential.
Mm-hmm. Like fully, when you come fully online.
Because what happens? Then you're going to disappoint.
Exactly.
You're going to disappoint some people.
Yeah.
That really thought you were the thing you were pretending to be.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Mm-hmm.
You realize you were giving your wholeness away to somebody else.
Yep.
And it's really been, in my experience, a visceral experience here in the last month of realizing how I was allowing other people to, and what their projection was of me, to dictate how I move within the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was almost, it was like there was an overlay over my consciousness as to what I was. And that it's like that was the fragmentation of the psyche.
Yes.
To externalize a sense of self-worth
Mm-hmm.
or a sense of safety to anything outside.
Yep.
And I think if we're talking about operating at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
part of this is the nervous system receiving a sense of safety within its own ability to connect
Mm-hmm.
to the creator of the game. And then that internal safety generates a level of, like, in my experience, what I would say is coolness, if we're talking about hot and cold.
Yeah.
because I think that a lot of my stress in the past has been an activated nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing around with the idea, and I'm curious what you think of this. You see me go to the gym, and the way I work out has been bodybuilding,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been more like that. And part of the reason why I've been doing that was because I was trying to work out in a way that didn't necessarily activate my nervous system a lot,
Yeah.
to still move, because I felt like I was getting a lot of activation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you feel about working out? I mean, I know the way that you work out, and I'm curious how you see movement with a less of a focus on intensity.
Okay, so I think that we're all divinely unique in our needs and our requirements, and I think that those needs and requirements change quite rapidly throughout the day, and I think that movement also becomes doctrine. And in formulating doctrine and structure, too much structure around even movement, then you could be limiting your own unique human potential in some way, shape, or form, So I have a variety of movements. For me personally, I need a very heavy workout, right? But I'm also aware that I am naturally can be quite kidney deficient as well because of that, because I work out so much, because I use my brain a lot, because I kind of am like you. I like to overwork a little bit, right? So I am aware of that, and I know what that feels and looks like in my body. So rather than be obsessed with aesthetic, I am more of the school of thought where I like to refine my beingness on a day-to-day basis. It's like, why do you need to go to the gym 5 days a week? Like, where does that come from? If we're talking about the gym, or we're talking about a structured form of movement that is not going to be mastery in any way, shape, or form, but more of a means to refine your body. I personally need like a heavy workout. It's how I really stress. But then I'll also do Pilates, I'll also do free movement in the week. Stretching is very important to me, flexibility, because I'm also quite, I also lean to some liver chi stagnation, right? Where I can get like a buildup of frustration almost in my system. And because of that, I like to stretch, because every organ system, like every organ is related to a sense organ, a fluid, a tissue, right? Which is what we were talking about in symptomatology. It's like you could have frontal lobe headaches every day and think, there's something neurological going on, but it's actually your liver. Or you can have night sweats at night, or continuous chronic lower back pain and knee pain, but it's actually caused by your kidneys. So when it comes to kind of the liver, the tissue of the liver is the sinews, right? So the tendons, the fascia, the ligaments. And I find that I personally require a certain amount of flexibility in my body, because it provides me with more flexibility in mind. So if I go and lift heavy weights for 3 days and then don't have one of those sessions that is just flexibility, then I notice in my cognitive functionality in the week, not just in my body, that my mind state becomes a bit more stagnant as well. But that's the relationship I have with my body. So I know I'm taking the long road to answering your question about movement.
No, this is perfect.
Yeah, but I think that, again, part of this kind of control aspects and attributes of the industrialized and very colonized wellness blueprints that we're dealing with right now is extracting the unique fragment of consciousness and again throwing it into an indoctrinated, almost religious system of movement. And that's just not what the human body is for. It's more about knowing why you require the movement and getting really clear on that. Is it, why do you want to build muscle? Is it so you look better in the mirror? Or is it so that if you're picking up logs, from your back garden to bring to your fireplace, you've got more strength behind that. Like what's your why, I guess. And then also getting really clear on if that why, like most things in our life, is causing more deficiency long term or providing you with more vitality. You know, I personally know, and I'm very aware that working out the way I personally work out is going to cause me probably more deficiency going forward, which is why I've now kind of fragmented out my why and are bringing in more things that benefit my personal needs rather than just movement, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's much like anything else. It's like food. We have all of these weird kind of diets to follow. It's all the same thing. It's like humanity is so interesting to me. It's like we talk about politics. We're able to see very clearly all of the manipulation, right, in the matrix of the human blueprint. But when it comes to challenging our own ideologies of self and health and wellness, we're willing to turn a blind eye to the same control structures that exist in our social constructs that are being reflected on the way that we inhabit our bodies.
Facts.
Like entirely. So yeah, I mean, what's your movement? What does your body have going on? Like you have to ask yourself that. But it's fascinating just talking about like how I was talking about like the ligaments and the sinews and stuff. If I noticed, I've got a very good relationship with my mind. And if I notice that I've got like a huge research project to do or something, and my mind is just it's not doing the thing, you know, at the high level, the high performance level I personally require for how I deliver myself, then I will just go and stretch. And I find that really helps me out. Or I will do some splenic work or stuff like that. I access different key attributes of my mind through the body, and especially through like movement. It could be Qigong, you know, the 8 brocades or whatever. Like that's very important to me as well, Qigong. So yeah, I think it's building up a kaleidoscope of tools that work for your personal toolbox of mastery. You know, it's like you go to IKEA, you have a bookshelf, and they give you the tools specifically for that bookshelf to build your little flat pack with. You know, and I think the human game and mastering the human game is much about creating the awareness that you require to build whatever flat pack you want to build that day. But you can't use the same tools for that bookshelf as you do for the dining room table. Probably not.
And you got to know what the tools are in the first place.
Exactly.
Which is where most people are, I feel like, are at.
Don't have a clue.
What the fuck are we even using?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many different places I want to go right now. I want to start with this question. Specifically, when you're talking about stretching, there's this whole rabbit hole that I went down. I had an ex that was really into functional patterns. You know what functional patterns is? And they have they're basically, from my understanding, I'm not going to put words directly, but I've gotten training from them. I've been one-on-one with them. I know what it's like, and I've done their course. And so for me, what I'm seeing is like they're doing a lot of myofascia release. And so I'm really curious about how you see fascia.
Oh
So
my
specifically, when you come to this, this is what you like, right? So there is the specific sentence that you said is really sticking out. You said, if I'm struggling, or not struggling, but you were talking about the mind, and if you want it to work at a certain capacity and it's not, you're going to go stretch. What I really would like to know is what is the mechanism that happens that makes stretching the tool for the mind to work correctly in your experience?
Okay. And again, and if you are not a student of quantum biology and you're listening to this podcast, please go and research quantum biology basics, you know, and that is like a whole body of work. Specifically, I will reference Dr. Catherine Clinton because I think that she is doing unbelievable things, especially around fascia and fascia release and water within the fascia and all of those things. So I think please go and reference that. Now, from my perspective, okay, we're going to have to revert back to 5-element theory for a second.
Sure.
Okay, so every element has an alchemical virtue, right? And the wood element, which houses the liver and the gallbladder, they say the liver is the planner and the gallbladder is the decision maker, right? And it's fascinating because if we were self-aware enough to connect our emotional patterning or chronic emotional ways that we function every day to the symptomatology or the way we experience our body every day and notice the nuances in those two things, you will very clearly see that there is a connection between our human behavior and the way our body functions as well. Right. So like people that have like bile issues and gallbladder problems usually not great at making decisions. So I've had loads of patients who've had their gallbladder removed and they cannot even pick something on a menu. You know, they're the person that you sit down with at the table when you're out for dinner and they're like, oh, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. Like they can't. Yeah. And the liver is the planner. So the alchemical virtue of the liver through the 5-element theory, and this is what's so beautiful, like as we connect all of the different Shen within the human ecology, we look at the fire element, that's the Shen, right? It is to know self, to know, right? It is the divine I am, to cultivate true self, to know true self. And when we say to know true self, you don't mind me having a total geek rant right now, do you?
This is why I'm here.
Okay. Right. So to know true self, and those organs are the heart is the yin organ and the yang organ, the fire element is the small intestine, right? So I won't go into all of the organ functions because this podcast will be the 7 hours that you have on the camera. But so the fire element is to know true self, right? It is the unique thread of consciousness. It is the Shen. It is the divine I am at the point of conception, you know? And then it leads into the earth element where the yang organ is the stomach and the yin organ is the spleen. And this is the alchemical virtue is to cultivate true path, right? Through the stomach and the spleen. But to cultivate true path, you have to know who you are or who your manifestation of divinity is right now in this moment, like we're sitting here together, you know? And I think a lot of people, when they are trying to cultivate path, they forget to explore the I am, you know? So that's the earth element. And then we go into the metal element, which is the lungs and the large intestine. And the alchemical virtue on that is the preciousness of the moment. You know, it really speaks to our animal wit, our divine intuition, and all of the amazing things that come from being deeply present, embodied right now. And then it moves on to the water element, the kidneys and the bladder, which alchemical virtue is the return to origin. And that speaks to, you know, the three treasures, our essence, our pre-heavenly chi, our divine mandate, quite literally. And then we move into the wood element, which is the liver and the gallbladder, which is to know true path, right? So within the alchemical virtues of what the hun, which is the consciousness, the spirit of the wood element and intrinsically linked to the liver and the gallbladder, gives us vision. It allows us to hold vision. It's our dreaming capacity. It's our imagination. It's our capacity to hold a vision so clearly, but also be flexible enough to hold the vision, but change the direction. So to not change the destination, but maybe take the back route if there's too much traffic on the way to where you're going, you know, but be flexible enough. It's the bamboo, you know, deeply rooted, empty in the middle, blows in the wind. You know, in Taoist and Chinese medicine theory, they say the wind is the emotions. And, you know, the bamboo represents being moved by the emotions, but not uprooted by them, to be deeply rooted and empty, you know, wu in the middle, to be empty. Yeah, and this is actually one of my tattoos is the symbol of the wu. Like it's the shamanic symbol of the wu, like the emptiness, and not to be devoid of feeling, but to be deeply rooted in your present moment that you're just moving in the wind of your existence, And the wood element really gives us that. So going back to the fascia and being like the tissue of the liver, the tendons, the sinews. If you are flexible in body, then you are more flexible in mind. Quite literally, because you can't separate these two things. You can't separate mind from body, So that being a tissue of the wood element for me personally, I find that if I'm getting stagnated in my mental processing, especially as I'm continuously processing quite large amounts of data and research and theory, and, we are all but mere mortals. And sometimes that gets a bit cloudy, And in order for me personally to hold my cognitive focus and execute gracefully or ungracefully, depending on the day, the journey to my destination, sometimes I've got to change direction in the sat nav, and stretching and fascia allow me to access the alchemical qualities that allow me to do that.
Remember, Dr. Michelle is going to be one of our expert facilitators for the Master the Storm training that I'm hosting that begins on 7/7. So only a couple days away. It's 21 days, 5 phases to help you at this moment in history, knowing what's going on in the world. Master the Storm was designed for this specific moment in a never before done way, because I want to help you to master the storm of the current events and what's currently happening in modern day 2025 to the human psyche. And the only way that I know how to help you is because I went through that shit myself. I've lost 125 pounds. I was stuck scrolling, addicted, and I was not living my potential. But I am now, bitch! And the point is to show you how to do the same, to create a coherent signal to help you to see what you really are beneath the layers of conditioning that have been placed upon you to disempower you. And she'll be covering phase 3, the interface. And I'm going to read to you what she said about the body. And this is her approach. She said, the body is where matter and mind converge. It's a living technology that is written in the language of biology. To master the storm of this reality in 2025, you must learn to regulate the interface or the body, because the body doesn't just respond to life, it creates it. And she'll be giving her transmission live called Recoding the Interface. To get access to this and all 5 phases, such as phase 1, the state of the game, giving you the truth beyond what I can say in this place. Phase 2, reactivating your connection to God / the Tao / universal intelligence. And after Doc goes phase 3, I'll be helping you to recode the player in phase 4, which is integrating the different aspects within your psyche. The ones that you've agreed to allow to run the show that are self-sabotaging. And this is to help you break free from those unconscious patterns, to master your ability to navigate through the storm at a high level, as I believe that is what we are here to do at this time in human history. And I'll be using Carl Jung's psychological model to show you how to practically apply it. There's so much more to it. I'm barely scratching the surface, but check the link below to learn more about Master the Storm and join us. We begin 7/7 starting very soon. Don't miss out on this opportunity to really step up, to reach the potential that has been living dormant within you. It's time to actually activate that. That's what this training is all about. Look in the description to join. It's time.
Short answer.
Very interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you think that the functional patterns idea of if you stretch it too much, it's like a rubber band that can get stretched out? Do you think that there's too much though? Or do you think that that's not really possible? I'm curious.
I think it depends on the body.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it depends on the body. And yeah, I think it depends on the body.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're on this vein, one thing that really happily surprised me was our conversation about rice. Okay. So for context, I'm running hot. And she says, I'm going to send you a starter pack. And the starter pack has rice in it. And I'm like, what about the inflammation on rice? And she's like, no, this is like, if you cook this right, you do the porridge, you do the things. This is actually what's
baby.
And I'm like, I fucking love rice. I have like not allowed myself to eat rice for a while because I was listening to the doctrine around.
But do you know what's so funny about that? This is what's so funny, right? There is a whole part of the world that just eats rice. And actually, they probably have better longevity profiles than us.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's,
For sure.
do you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is when the lines of clarity get blurred between the different layers of manipulation we're receiving.
Yeah, because it's like this gives you more information. End of story. You shouldn't. There's no conversation about the elemental makeup of it.
No,
like
you're
how it
unique.
can affect your unique kind of constitution,
Ecology.
biology, physiology, terrain, however you want to say it. And so it's that oversimplistic. We've got it figured out. I think that's what it is. And I get into those boxes, and I'm not flexible. So
He's
I
like
need to do some
that
stretching.
part as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to do some stretching for sure.
Yeah.
Especially if I start traveling and I go do some things, I need to work on the old flexibility. But it makes sense. And so where I was going with the rice idea was how I would like to explore that with you.
Mm-hmm.
How we get to the state of, okay, you're hot, and it's not just rice, obviously, but that's just one piece of what you gave. So for somebody that is like feeling, I can guarantee there's going to be a ton of fam on here that relates to being stressed and feeling like they're running hot.
Yeah.
And so
Restlessness. Yeah, it's restlessness, right? Because when there's empty heat in the system, it leaves the system restless, because then things are not rooted, the blood isn't rooted, you know? If you have a yin deficiency, you're probably going to be at risk of a blood deficiency as well. So there's a restlessness in the system. And it was interesting when you were speaking earlier, saying that you lean towards things that kind of sedate your nervous system, you know, but maybe there's a difference between nervous system dysregulation and restlessness. And I actually starting to know your physiology now, think that restlessness, that what you're talking about is that kidney chi restlessness, like that yin deficiency. And a lot of high performers are kidney deficiency, so have that kind of restlessness in the system for sure. So it's more like empty heat that is caused by deficiency in the organs.
Interesting. I think for me, that probably stems from coming from a life or coming from a way of living that was rooted in, I didn't really have that much of like a safety net, so to speak, besides
Right.
the Tao or God.
Yes.
So it's not, I didn't have a sense of I could just relax, and I felt like I needed to, and I wanted to, but there was a lot of integration. In the last 2 years for me has been a lot of internal and external facing things, and I think that it has led to, I mean, just in the world with the amount of things that I'm doing with the short form, the long form, all the editing, and doing the book now, and doing the podcast companions, and doing the podcast. I think for me, it's like I'm really starting to lean into, this is going to sound interesting, but actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
I think for me, there's a part of me that just didn't want to do it, but I was like forcing myself to do it, which probably caused the hotness.
Yeah.
And it was a necessary part of the journey. I don't think it was necessarily wrong that I did it that way, but it was just getting through the resistance. Like most people I feel are not even doing it because they're like, I don't want to do it, or their persona or whatever whatever shadow that is running the show. So for me, it was like I could see it, but I wasn't able to get to the point where I'm addicted to doing hard things.
Yeah.
I feel like in the past 6 months, I've gotten like really to that state. So I feel like a regulation, when you're talking about sedating the nervous system, for me, I think it's like not necessarily sedating dysregulation in the same way that someone would take like a pill to just like
Yeah.
numb out. And I think that what's really sticking out to what you're saying is the variation aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really what I'm feeling right now is, what are we training for?
Yeah.
What are we living for?
Mm-hmm.
Are we living just to stay alive?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
That's what the biohackers are doing.
Exactly.
You're living to just keep living.
It's just so fascinating. It's just really fascinating. And it's
Yo, Seva, hit me with can you pull up how many supplements does Brian Johnson take a day?
it's crazy amount.
Tell me. I want to I bet you it's like 200.
Oh, it's definitely in the hundreds. For sure.
I wonder how the supplements are generated though. Like what is that process like? You know, maybe that's more unhealthy. I bet that's what that's probably the dark secret.
That's probably the
Biohacking.
dark secret. Yeah.
It says approximately 100 to 111 pills every day.
100 pills a day. Yeah, I was taking like 10 pills a day and my stomach was like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
I wonder how he feels internally.
There's 91 in the morning and more later throughout the day.
Can somebody check on Brian Johnson? Like, can somebody look at his internals? Is he okay?
It's a lot.
I just want to know, you know, if you're taking 100 suppies, what do you need 100 of? Well, what do you think? As I gotta hear what you think about this shit. As somebody who you're dedicated your life to this shit, what do you think about these hosers doing their thing with 100 supplements a day? What is it?
I just think it's, for me, for my personal values, it goes completely against my desires for myself. You know, I feel like that's an intrinsic dissonance between between how I want to live my life. I think it's ludicrous. And also it has that kind of industrialized aspect to it, you know, as well. There's lines are very blurred within the health industries. It's like how much really of it is for the betterment of human potential and how much is it for somebody's profit margin.
Yes.
You know, and
yes, for sure.
It's all, a lot of it is all one big marketing ploy.
Totally.
Like,
you know, when you're talking, I do just want to say I'm not trying to talk shit about Brian. I think that he's a very interesting guy, and I'm joking. But at the same time, I do want to give credit where credit's due. I did see a YouTube video where he made talking about how some of these supplement companies are full of beans.
Of course they are.
So he's doing some good things. I mean, it's not like he's the worst. I think that there's some people out there doing some wild things, right? He's not channeling the Galactic Federation. He's all right. But I don't know. I don't know about this whole having an umbrella outside type shit. You know, why do you think that people are scared of the sun? You know what I mean?
I mean, that to me is also so wild, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
It's like really wild. It's that innate disconnection from the mother, as far as I'm concerned. It's like you can't be scared of the sun and then connected to the all. In my humble, no shit, nothing opinion,
The
it's
thing
like,
that provides life
it's
for
a
all of
total
us.
disconnect from the mother. Like it's so crazy how we're being manipulated out of the very basic points of connection to real life, you know? And then buying into these alternative, very complex models of existence. Just go outside. Like, go outside.
Just go fucking touch some grass.
Yeah, just go outside, man. Like, what is happening here? Just go outside.
We aren't allowed to go outside.
And it's like even the relationship with the cells, again, quantum biology, go and check out Dr. Catherine Clinton, and how our cells function. We require that relationship. You know, humanity is becoming more and more disconnected from the mother, you know. And when I say the mother, is like the earth is our living womb. It is our mother, you know, not to throw in some holy rhetoric or anything like that. It is. We are the micro to the macro. And to be disconnected, like to sever the umbilical cord to the very environment that provides us with sustenance, is ludicrousy to me. It's ludicrousy. And it's all a means of control and manipulation to provide sustenance to systemic kind of domestication that doesn't serve a purpose in human potential. Not in the truly expansive opportunity of exploring human potential that we exist at, but more within like the controlled interface of what we're dealing with here, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So with that idea of human potential, let's say there is some truth to the idea of we're being manipulated in this way for profit or for this or for that or for control. Let's just presuppose that idea for a second. What do you see is the human potential? Like, what? Most people are shooting for just being healthy, but what is the fucking potential of what we could become and what we should aim for beyond just making it in terms of like, I'm at baseline, like I'm alive and I'm not struggling in some particular, and I feel like that's such a low level fucking aim of most people, you know?
It is truly. But that's part of kind of breaking our pre-existing framework, isn't it? Like of doctrine within ourselves, I believe. Like, what is making it? What is success? Like those things are also kind of only personally defined by the unique person, you know? Like human potential, I think, exists in being in awe of your moments. Like, and what comes with that? Imagine the potentiality that comes from being the architect of your own embodied existence, not just from activating your own inner physician, but really mastering mind through body. Like, do we know what that looks like?
Few humans may.
I mean, they definitely do exist.
Yeah.
For sure.
Somewhere in the mountains somewhere.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even that, you know, and this is where I'm like, words are a casualty, because I really do think that we've been predisposed. We were talking about this at dinner recently, I think, even with Eisen, maybe, where we've been predisposed to kind of definitions of words. You know, it's like some people, when they think of human potential, they think of 10xing their business profits. You know, it's like, what does human potential mean to you?
It's the same idea of what does God mean?
Exactly. What does God mean to you?
To me?
Yeah.
What does God mean to me? Let me pull a Jordan Peterson. What do you mean by God?
Hey.
What do you mean by God? Tell me what you mean by God.
Do you enjoy Jordan Peterson?
Do I enjoy?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I want to pull out the Muppet. I'm thinking, I don't want to be disrespectful. I think he's a very interesting guy. I think that I would love to have a conversation with him. And I respect a lot of the work that he's done. I think I do have a lot of differences in the way that I see the world compared to Jordan Peterson. I think that it is a good thing to ask people what they mean by things, but I think it can be an imbalance to the side of it being used as a way to escape any responsibility for having an opinion.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Because with that responsibility comes people perceiving you a certain way, and it can be used as a
course.
scapegoat to not want to be perceived a certain way, because you
Totally.
can isolate the people that support you in a way that is not beneficial. I'm not saying he's doing this, but it's a potential.
Yeah.
You could potentially do that in order to ride both fences instead of just saying, this is what I think.
This is what I think. This
Right.
is how it is. Yeah.
I thought that episode of Surrounded was really interesting with him. And I can answer it straight, though. What do I think about... You asked the question, what do I
Yeah.
think of God?
Yeah. What is God to you?
What is God to me? God is the intelligence that is omnipresent in creation and beyond creation.
Yeah, and beyond and beyond.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's levels of what we consider. There's levels of what we consider to be God. And I think in order to go further, I would need another question. You know what I'm saying? So what I think of God, that's my definition in some sense. What do you think of God?
Much the same. You know, I see God as this kind of unspoken source intelligence that runs through the ethers of all of existence, you know, the overriding architect of realities as we experience them. And I mean, you're the Bible guy.
I don't want to be the Bible guy. I don't.
You're the Bible guy, but like as far as you know, being made in his image, like as the micro to the macro. So human potential to me is really kind of expanding into the possibilities of architecting reality in whatever means I see fit for me. Because human potential is such a broad statement.
Yeah.
It's broad.
So do you see, when you think about your view of this reality, do you see there being how much of reality is predetermined? To you, what do you think?
Oh God, that's such a big question, isn't it?
I'm curious. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I think that we all have. I think that we all have divine mandates of possibility within our own unique expression of it. Right? Do I think that we can change the outcome? Of course. It's kind of like, and I think that because I work with the reflective nature of the body and kind of the principles of essence, right? So it's like we have Jing, right? One of the three treasures, essence, which is like our pre-heavenly chi. It is the divine mandate of vitality that we were given to live this life with, embody, blessed or not so blessed from our parents, you know, which is where the idea of genetics comes from, actually. So they say that you can't add to Jing, right? But what you can do is work with post-heavenly chi, like the cultivating of post-heavenly chi, which protects pre-heavenly chi, you know? So kind of working backwards when it comes to answering that question of, do I think anything's predetermined? I think that we come here with a certain amount of possibilities for our unique reflection of consciousness. But I think that we can utilize the tools that we choose to explore here and the idea of, I don't know, free will even, to manipulate and change those things. What do you think?
I could take that in so many different directions. I think it's somewhere along the lines of you're in a game.
Yeah.
and there's expansion packs, and the expansion packs are scripted to some extent. Just like if you were to play, have you ever played World of Warcraft? I gotta ask.
Played what?
World of Warcraft. Have you ever played?
No, I have not, sir.
We found something. I got some XP points on you. I have over a year played of game time.
Really?
More than that.
Wow.
It's I spent a ton of my childhood playing that instead of partying and doing these things. And so in World of Warcraft, you have, if we're answering the question, is reality predetermined? You have expansions that are set in the same way that, like, maybe there are characters that are in the human game at this expansion pack that are set. And then you have parameters and limitations in which you're playing. So, for example, you have a quest line that it could be predetermined to some extent, but it could also be fluid in the sense that if you are leveling up your resilience and you actually have an opportunity to level that up and you choose to decline that opportunity, that opportunity can be, that quest line can be fluid to happen again. To have that same archetype come back to you to give you that chance to continue the hero's journey, if the hero's journey is like the archetypal way in which we experience this reality. So it's not as though you only have one shot, it's predetermined and you're screwed, or that you don't have free will. I would say that it is similar to a game in the sense that there is a certain amount of levels. There are levels in which you can play the game.
Yeah.
And you can level up actually in the game. I do actually genuinely think that that's part of it. And so there is a predetermined as to what the structure is of the game as well.
Kind of like Jing.
Exactly.
Kind of like Jing, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I said in that first podcast, Human Game Explained, was there are different technological advancements to determine our metaphorical understanding of the human game. So in Taoist, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And the example I gave in that podcast was, if you say it's a dream or a game, if you really pay attention to the details, they're not that different.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a VR game.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about predeterminism. I think there's a level of structure, there's limitation that we come to play in. And I think that there's an obsession right now with the agenda is to implant within our culture, society, that suffering is intrinsically bad. Because if you think that, then somebody can come in and save you.
Exactly.
Daddy can come in and save.
Totally.
Daddy Gov can come in and say,
absolutely.
"Oh, you're suffering.
Daddy Gov.
You're suffering. Why don't you come on down? I'll take care of everything.
Yeah.
You just give away your ability to self-sustain yourself."
Yes.
Right?
Totally. It's like what we were talking about at the beginning, that chaos, that the necessary chaos in your daily evolution of your human experience. It's necessary. It's totally necessary.
I was just thinking about this idea. It's the idea of, if you want to understand different levels of the human experience or the human game, however you want to say it, it's like the difference between, there's a massive difference between the type of person or the type of player who wants this to be easier, wants the game, the experience to be easier, versus the one who wants to play a hard game because they enjoy playing hard games.
Yeah.
And so the implant or the corrupt code that most people are running is to think that the game itself, this experience, should be easier.
Yeah.
It's too hard. It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this way. It's a distrust of God.
Yeah.
It's a distrust of universal intelligence.
Totally.
It's a distrust of the Tao, whatever you want to say.
Amen.
So when you don't trust that,
Yeah.
then you're looking for the next best thing to come and save you.
Exactly.
So that's what this is all about. It's about getting you to give away your power
To
to
be
something else.
disempowered.
To something else.
Yes, to
whether
something
it's
else.
a diet, whether
Yes,
it's
totally.
okay. You want to fucking get a whole fucking let's get this whole arena right.
All right, let's go.
Let's just say
Let's
it
go.
all in like 30 seconds. It's like you can't. I'm not gonna say it all, but let's disempower you by giving you a half truth. Working out's great, but then we're going to put you in artificial light And we're
Yes.
going to have you in boxes where you just pick things up, put them down.
Yeah.
You're isolating all your muscle groups. So
Yeah.
then your back is imbalanced. It's
Yeah.
all imbalanced. It's all
Totally.
fucked up. Now we're going to tell you steroids is good. We're going to promote
Yeah.
all the people, all the dudes that are running steroids that are in the background. You ain't seeing them going to the hospital because they're getting shit
Exactly.
on and they're like 17 years old now.
Yeah.
And then they're thinking that they're badass just because they're fucking, they leveled up their physical body, but
Yeah.
their mental body is like level 1. And they're like, oh, well, I'm fucking, accept me because I've got fucking big muscles.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what the fuck are we doing? Why
Yeah.
are we leveling up just one stat? And so that whole idea of if you're leveling up just one stat,
Exactly.
that's part of the trap. That's part of the
Of
false
course.
light loop. And it's also the
Absolutely.
spiritual. You can also be
Oh
that way
my
with the
God.
spiritual and these dudes with all their
Absolutely.
fucking beads
Oh
and
my
their
God, I
channeling.
can't.
And
The
now
shaman
they're
bros.
having their sacred cacao ceremonies. and their physical bodies are absolutely
Oh my gosh.
nothing. They couldn't
Yeah.
defend nothing
No,
because they've been
literally.
fucking false light looped into
Yeah.
thinking that
False
it's all
light loop. Totally.
it's all just the spiritual thing is the only
Exactly.
thing that matters, and then they're disconnected from the interface to the body, and then their signal, like you were just talking about,
Yeah.
then their signal that is generated by their physical biology
Exactly.
is distorted, so they think that they can connect more by trying to leave the body, but the body is the thing that generates the signal.
Exactly.
And so you can't hear, you're actually not more
No.
in tune by not taking care of the physical body.
Exactly. Totally.
You know?
100%.
And so I think the thing that they fear the most is the well-rounded human,
Wholeness. Totally.
right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we were talking about at the beginning, you know, when you were like, what do people need? I'm like, self-awareness, like, and to not be scared of self-awareness. And like we were talking about the pathologizing of our whole existence and then the lack of self-awareness and self-observation that we are kind of reflecting that disallows us to make radical choices that reconnect the threads of our consciousness, you know, from all aspects, not just from the mind perspective, from the body perspective, but, you know, how are you living in your environment? Like, what does your environment say about you?
Honestly, that has to be the fucking key. I mean,
Like-
I would say that because
Yeah.
I lied to myself
Yeah.
a lot throughout this. So when you're talking about self-awareness, it has to be honest
It has to be.
self-awareness.
Yeah, totally.
Because so many people I find project an idea of what they would like to think is happening versus the reality of what is happening.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you try to justify, oh, I'm just scrolling because and then it's just some bullshit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
You're lying to yourself
Yeah.
about you. It's really being scared of your own potential, of what you
Totally.
could be if you actually went all in. And as somebody who I feel like is genuine, like myself, I feel like I am genuinely on the other side of like I've went all in, and it's really fucking satisfying.
Yeah.
It's a level of peace and fulfillment that I genuinely hope that everybody gets to experience at least a little bit in their life. And if I could just share with people how incredible it feels to be up and edit, like last night I was editing for probably since like 6 o'clock till like midnight, and the feeling that you get when you're actually doing it, I think that that's what people are not understanding, that there's actually a level of peace and fulfillment that comes in that actually it feels more harmonious than the pleasure impulse thing that most people are doing.
Because you are exploring that, the Shen, right? The sacred manifestation of knowing oneself. And obviously that frequency shifts, you know, we are not a stationary frequency our whole existence, but when you are tuned in to the radio station of your unique frequency of consciousness, then it becomes awe-inspiring. You're in awe of your human potential, like you are excavating the landscapes of your human potential, you know, and it feels good to do so. It feels good to go hiking in your own human possibility. And I don't think most people get to feel that. And they won't get that feeling of self-satisfaction that you are describing, that to others might look like hell. Oh my God, he was up until after midnight editing, you know, but the satisfaction that you're saying that you feel from that is a sure sign that you are kind of surfing the waves of your own human potential, you know? Whereas editing up until after midnight and hating every godforsaken minute of it and not, dying to go to bed probably shows that you're not in your unique thread of consciousness right now. And I think that
Interesting.
that is that's also interesting for people because, like we said, we've got this really interesting relationship with suffering. So I think our relationship with suffering can kind of become blurred lines sometimes. It's like, am I suffering because I am suffering for my mission? Or am I suffering just because I'm suffering?
That's the question. Because I've noticed that there's a part of my psyche that has been programmed to think that if it's hard and it's like consistently hard, that it's not actually for me.
Yeah.
And that's definitely, it's like a half truth. But I feel like genuinely there was a level of being willing to suffer.
Yes.
I think that people don't get to experience the level of satisfaction that comes with reaching your potential because they're not willing to suffer to reach that potential.
Exactly. Totally. Like the suffering for your mission, for sure. And there does come, I think that has a lot to do with the mastery of self, is the being able to kind of be in those realms that are not so satisfying, but find satisfaction in them, that mutually dependent, intertwining nature of yin and yang.
It's like it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to like a fundamental, I had to get beyond the fundamental nature of wanting it to be different.
Yeah.
And instead changing myself.
Yes.
And that was one of the most difficult things, and it still is one of the most difficult things that I've had to work through. And I think if more people were able to be honest with themselves and say, hey, look, I'm causing myself to suffer through my perception.
Yes.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
And it really does come down to the simple things.
Totally. And also causing myself to suffer from my relationship with my own doctrine, my own dogma.
Inflexibility.
Yeah.
Let's say that you were speaking to Americans only. Okay. And you know the American mind. All of the distortion within the American mind. What would you, if you could say one thing to Americans, what would it be? At this moment in history, what do you say?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that requires a whole exorcism, doesn't it?
I don't think we're that bad. I mean, depending on which American you're talking to, I'm talking about the collective American psyche.
My goodness. One thing. That's a very difficult question.
What's something that's coming to you? It doesn't have to be the best thing. It can just be anything. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. I mean, what I would tell them is to probably take Master the Storm.
Yeah.
Actually.
Very nice.
That's not even like just a plug.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be a lot of realization that happens. And that can only happen individually through the selves. It's not a collective issue. It's like it's an individual issue that becomes like the weaving of a conscious collective, So the more people that we can bring to kind of self-salvation through self-actualization and self-realization, then the more you can affect the tapestry of the conscious collective. And I think that your work is phenomenal in doing that.
Thank you.
Good job, Yoda.
Thank you very much. Basically, come train with us. That's what you're saying.
Come train with us, people.
Y'all need some training. Y'all need some. But that's why we created Master the Storm.
Yeah.
And I think I would say something similar.
Yeah. I mean,
You know.
even like through your work, and I'm gonna blow smoke up your ass for a little bit. So just please let me blow that smoke for a minute. But you have this really eloquent way. And I love the intelligence and the eloquence and the execution of the way that you communicate through your skits and stuff like that, because humanity is kind of this creation of divinity, you know? And to dumb that down sometimes is an absolute abomination of possibility if we keep communicating with each other in these kind of low level ways, you know? And I think you have this really beautiful way of reflecting these concepts in a way that enriches the human psyche and creates levels of awe that then are going to allow people to start questioning. Because I think that having space to question your own existence or existence itself has to come from a feeling of what if. For me, anyway, you know, I have to feel like this kind of magical pull of awe towards something where I'm like, wow, what if? And I think that you do that so beautifully. Truly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Likewise. Likewise, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
even that, the amount of people that have probably come to your page and it looks very, very, you know, for like the intellectual philosopher, but the more that you make it humane through your skits and stuff, it just opens up codes, man, like, and possibility, you know? And that's what we need more of. We need more of like self-realization through the kind of massaging of awe.
Yeah. And it's like the massaging of creative potential.
Yes.
Because one thing that I'm proud of with my own work, if I'm going to blow smoke up my own ass,
now's the time, baby.
it's like I really pride myself on doing things my own way.
Yes.
And, you know, I've never seen anybody do a skit book in that format.
No.
And I've been making skits for years now, and I just like doing things uniquely. And I think that's part of what the transformation in humanity is. Like, if I was going to say something to Americans specifically, like how to get your shit together, it's tap into your creativity.
The I am.
Yes, because that is the center of, I feel, wholeness for me, is when I'm in that state of, I'm not trying to fix myself necessarily, and I'm in a radical acceptance of what is in this moment, and I'm just looking to be of service. And I think if we had more people that were open to that idea of reaching their potential, continuing to level up, and then creating things that inspired them, that's what I'm trying to do.
Totally.
You know?
It is that, yeah.
And I think that part of it for me is for people to explore God outside of confines of what you've been told, especially the American, what you've been told God is. Because I think that it's very different than what is the current churchianity interpretation of the Bible.
Oh, yes.
And so it's not to say that Jesus isn't an absolute master. It's not to say that. It's actually to say that maybe there's something deeper in what he was saying, specifically what he was saying, not the interpretations, not the religion that was created about Jesus, but what he spoke himself. And so I think for me, like, I decided to create Master the Storm because I see what's happening in the world. We're on the brink of what might be World War III. I mean, they're saying it is. I don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure, but it's like, if not us, then who?
Then who?
Right? It's
Right.
like we tend to think that we're not the main characters of our own stories. And so we created this 21-day training to help people to step into their main character type shit, to actually understand that you can impact the game, that you have a purpose in this. You're not just here for no reason. There is a specific reason that you are alive. And if you can tap into that, if you can start to pursue greatness and your potential in that way, you may experience a level of satisfaction that you have never experienced before in a peaceful and a harmonious way that is more in alignment with, for example, the Tao, or even with God, you could say. And so that's part of the reason why we do the podcast too, is to help people to connect back to their true nature, to explore themselves, to figure out what the truth is. And I think I just want to help people to train, because I see so many people are lost right now, especially, you know,
very much so.
there's so many. I look at the rates of people leaving the planet and I'm just like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like the voices out there that are truly, we need more people, I feel. Not need, but I think that this is the time for more people to step into creating from this specific frame and from this
what is.
Yes.
Yeah. To the what is. And it's innate. It's innate in all of us, you know? And like I always say about the fingerprints, like you were just speaking very beautifully about individuality and uniqueness. Nobody has all your fingerprints. Nobody. So therefore, there is something majestic about why you are here. You know, I think part of our journey is to explore that potentiality in the expression of divinity. Like truly.
Yeah. And I think there's a in the human game model, I have this idea of soul evolution trajectory and a kind of a soul evolutionary journey beyond the technical synthetic false light loop of evolution based on the human body only. I think there's another layer, like a multidimensional layer of the evolution using the reincarnation model.
Yeah.
And I think that there are people that are here for a specific purpose in this life. And there may be people that are here to experience and have a purpose that is not around the specific type of way I'm creating and teaching and training. And I think that that's just part of the game too. You know, there's different archetypes. There's different archetypes.
Totally.
But I think that I'm trying to speak to those that are ready to be like, they see the state of the world and they're like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do something.
Yeah.
Let's do something. Let's train. And I think that's what we are kind of missing in this modern day culture is, if you look at, you've studied more indigenous cultures probably than me, but we see this initiation type of rites of passage type thing that happens in many cultures around the world throughout history. And we just don't have that in our culture. And there's no training as to how to handle reality. It's basically just go to school, get indoctrinated, and then fucking
join the church.
And then join the church.
Join the church,
Savage, but true.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true.
Yeah, it's true.
And so
Let us save you from yourself.
I feel like the only person that can save oneself is oneself. And all we can do is show people this is the path that we've taken. This is your options for your paths. How can you clear your distortion so that you can hear your intuition to know what the path is for you? Because I think part of, to actually call back to what you said earlier, there's a doctrine in each. And it can be around that idea that this is the path.
This is the way.
Right. And what is the Taoist principle even at the book of the way, right? And so it's very interesting how I feel like the role, as you start to help more and more people, I've helped a lot of people over the years, and it's like most people just aren't even aware of what's happening within themselves. And if you can clear the distortion, this is why I love Carl Jung. If you can clear the psychological distortion, you can actually and do so in tandem with the body.
Yes.
You can clear the distortion in the body because they're not separate, right?
Not separate.
I love that conversation we had, because it's like sometimes there can be an imbalance, and that's why we have you coming on to Master the Storm, right? And you're going to share about the interface, because it's not just about the psychology. Because tell us what you told me. because it was really fucking interesting.
Which bit?
You're
We
talking
talk a
about
lot.
okay, we did talk a lot. Okay. I'm talking about the context of people can get lost in thinking it's just psychological.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, of course, because I think that comes with, again, going back to the separatist thing. Like, we, for some reason, don't want to see ourselves as whole. I think that the idea of wholeness from an embodied perspective can be overwhelming for people. It's overwhelming to be in a body. Life is overwhelming. And through that, we kind of separate the idea of psychology from biology. But we wouldn't be experiencing mind if we didn't have a body. Then we wouldn't be experiencing mind. Like, matter and mind are intrinsically linked. You can't separate the two. And it's fascinating even seeing, like, okay, so say PTSD or something, which I spoke to you about. And this is just like a real-time example, right? Clinically, if you're treating, a veteran or somebody that has PTSD, it's fascinating how, because different aspects of the mind live in different parts of the human form, right? Or they can be experienced fully or less fully through parts of the human form. It's like, I'm coming back to the PTSD thing, but it's like everybody that has digestive issues says they have brain fog, right? It's that gut to brain access. You can't separate the intellect from the digestive tract, because even to experience the intellect means that you have a very clear pathway to psychological digestion. You're able to psychologically digest information. You're able to plant a seed. You're able to digest it, go through a process of gestation and bring the plant to harvest, right? Even ideation is the same thing, right? It's a process of psychological digestion. But if you have gastric issues, you don't have that psychological digestion. You get brain fog, right? So even like with concepts like PTSD, which is very real, it's very real, very real, will be experienced differently by different people based on embodied deficiencies or fullness. And you see that clinically, like in clinic. People that have certain types of looping PTSD cycles will also have the same internal patterns going on. So that in itself shows the connection between our kind of chronic looping mind states and emotions and the human physiology. And Carl Jung talks about this, in like the Golden Flower, even in his translation of that. His
Could
work,
you pull that up for us, brother?
yeah, the Golden Flower, and his translation of that book. Have you read that?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, the Golden Flower.
So it's his book called The Golden Flower?
No, it's not. It's an ancient text that he translated, and also his work is continuously referenced in internal alchemy, like in Five Spirit Concepts. They continuously reference Carl Jung, like especially in the more modern texts and stuff like that, and the integrative nature between the dimensions in the human body and how they reflect psychologically in mind. Like truly, like another basic thing that I see in clinic, and we are so obsessed with complex ideas that the simplicities of the what is, kind of like in life itself, when shit hits hitting you in the face in our societies, and then for some reason you have to complexify the what is. It's right in your face. It's like people that have chronic constipation, right? But they're eating all the right things. They're doing all the fiber things or whatever you believe to be true and healthy for the human colon. And they just can't work it out. Why? I'm doing all the things. I live on laxatives, but there are certain things that they're not letting go of in their life. And then it reflects in the human physiology, because you can't separate those two things, And then when they become alive to those reasoning, they're like, oh my God, my bowels are the best it's ever been in years.
It's all connected.
It has to be. And even that in itself is simple, right? That is
But
actually
most people
very
don't
simple.
think like that.
I know. It's like
It is simple, but
yeah, because everything has to be connected.
because it's like there's psychology, it's the boxes, right?
Yeah.
There's psychology, and then there's the body.
Exactly.
And so it's like, well, how can we connect those?
But that self-awareness piece, right? It's like what we were saying earlier on. It's like our chronic behavioral patterns can be intrinsically linked to the way our body functions. Like totally. But are people self-aware enough to see that even within their own day-to-day existence is the problem.
We're working on it.
We're doing the best.
What you got, Bray? You got anything
The
from the
secrets
golden
of the golden flower.
Okay. The Secret of the Golden Flower, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Is a classic Taoist text on inner alchemy, meditation, and the path to awakening. Hold on. 1 second.
Carl Jung has done it. His translation is my absolute favorite, actually. You must get that book.
I must.
You must.
Okay, so
I will.
Carl Jung's interpretation. Jung saw the golden flower process as an ancient map of individuation, the psychological integration of the ego with the self. Carl Jung said, "It seems to me that the union of opposites is really the meaning of the secret of the golden flower."
The union of opposites. What does that sound like?
You tell me.
The same shit we've been saying this whole fucking podcast.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
The union of opposites.
Mm-hmm. The intertwining, mutually dependent nature of creation.
Rice. I don't know. I'm thinking about rice right now. Yo, how does that damp type shit?
Yeah.
How does that shit work? Dry heat,
All right, not dry heat. Oh my gosh.
void heat.
Are we talking about
Empty.
damp? Are we
Empty.
talking about damp?
You said
Because-
I'm empty inside.
I mean, that could be a good thing. That could work to your advantage, you know?
I am an enlightened master. That's basically what you're saying. You can take that one of two ways. Either you're dead inside or you're doing great.
Damp. Okay, so damp is fascinating. It's a splenic. You're making my mascara run.
Am I?
Yeah.
Do you need anything to drink?
Sure.
All right, we'll take a little break. We're going to take a little break, get a drink. We're about to get back into it here. And dead ass, this is what I'm doing, all right? So, Doc here got me interested in this stuff called black stuff. You might have seen it if you've been on the podcast before. But I'm putting this in my coffee. Doc's not necessarily happy that I'm having coffee. But we got to do what we got to do. So, black stuff comes in these containers here. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can get the zoom in here on post. But this stuff really does help with your inner soil. That's the way I've understood it.
Totally.
And it helps your body in the same way that if you have agriculture in a state of depleting the soil, you're not going to be able to absorb shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I noticed a big difference when I started taking black stuff in my ability to even like absorb from food, right? It works for supplements too, of course. We just talked about how supplements can be meh, but we're talking about, I don't think people understand that it doesn't matter if you're going to Whole Foods and getting amazing food. If your body cannot absorb the nutrients, like that's,
Exactly.
it's crazy to me to think about
Yeah.
how important things like this are.
Yeah.
And so this has chaga, pine bark extract, fermented, really good stuff. I've had a really good experience with it. And so I recommend that you get it. I do it yin and yang. We've been talking yin and yang. I do it with creatine twice a day. I'm taking this with creatine at the same time. I find it a phenomenal combination for energy. It's been really great in my experience. So you can find the link to this in the description below. And we'll get started here in a second. Again, I'm going to put the milk back. We'll get going. There we go. All right, where were we at?
Carl Jung, The Union of Opposites.
We were talking about damp rice type shit, right?
Okay. Damp.
Yeah, that's interesting. The concept of damp.
Well, that's like terrain theory as well, isn't it? It's like, it's just so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's kind of like allergens, right? I'm going to just call on allergens for a minute because damp is a terrain thing, you know? So it's like people accept pollen allergies and like I'm just allergic to pollen or I'm allergic to mold. Whereas if these were real pathogens in creation, then everybody would be allergic to mold or allergic to damp. We all would. So therefore that speaks to a certain constitution within individual terrain, you know, which goes back to what I was saying about PTSD. You know, you can ask a patient certain questions and do like an internal investigation and realize that there are similar patterns happening inside the human body that accentuate traumatic experiences in mind, you know? Like, and heat is one of those things. So with damp, they say that it is from a Chinese medicine perspective, and it all ties into Western theology and stuff like that with the lymphatic system and things, right? But damp, they say, is a splenic deficiency, and the spleen has a function of separating, well, mutually, it separates fluids, right? So it transforms fluids and transforms and transports fluids. And through the cycle of qi, which is, you know, we're definitely not going to talk about the cycle of qi right now because it's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when the spleen is deficient and it's not transforming and transporting fluids, then you get a buildup of kind of impure fluids in the system, which could be seen as lymph in different, you know, bodies of medicine and whatnot. And with this dampness, these fluids that are sitting in the body that are not being transported or transformed in any way, shape, or form, then you are getting a certain environment that leads to being fertile ground for different pathogens. And like Candida, you know, if you've got a damp environment, what grows in nature is going to grow inside of you. It's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also that kind of damp environment can lead to a lot of brain fog kind of patterns and lethargy and stuff like that people just accept as part of their day-to-day existence when actually they're just damp. But even being damp, right, if you're naturally predisposed to damp in the system, then everything that you've been taught is well, you know, like raw foods and pressed juices, you shouldn't be having them for your damp constitution.
If you're already damp.
If you're already damp.
But what if you're void heat? Whatever you call it, empty heat?
Empty heat.
Yeah, what if you're empty
Okay,
heat?
so yin deficient. So with you really want to, I'm just using you as an example, you really want to lead with tonification, right? Which is how we got onto the subject of congee and rice and stuff like that.
Right. We're hitting it.
Yeah, is because you want to really nourish the system. You want to nourish blood. You want to nourish yin. And that doesn't look like what the day-to-day average wellness bro will tell you is good for your system, you know? But if you're working with like kidneys, you really want broths, like soupy, warming things, not raw, cold things. You really want to help nourish and tonify yin and not create an environment where it's running in the opposite direction.
That's absolutely groundbreaking, I feel.
But it is that's the mastery. When we talk about self-mastery, even, I mean, self-mastery is a broad concept. It's a broad paradigm, right? But especially within the realms of physiology, it's being able to read your own terrain as you need to read it, right? Because like you were saying, the body is the interface. It is the antenna. It reacts accordingly to your environment. You know, even us sitting here right now, our bodies are behaving a certain way because we are sitting here, together. It's like when you walk into a room and you just know that you shouldn't be there. Your body's like, no, thanks. I'd rather not be in that room. And to be able to master the terrain and adjust it accordingly is really to open yourself up to a greater connection to possibility, like to God, as we're talking about. Because if the body is the interface to consciousness, because matter requires consciousness and consciousness requires matter, then the more that we adjust the antenna, the more we're going to be able to have a very unique experience with our very unique information field that's available to us in every moment, you know? And all of these things, like what you continuously and eloquently teach people about distraction and all of these things, is a way to distract us from that very powerful information field that all of us have access to if we're tuned in. But we have to do that. That's the human journey, isn't it? Is to be able to uniquely experience that and be the master of that, of your own existence. Because if you can't do that, how are you going to make a change moreover? Like, you can't stop drinking coffee in the morning, but I'm not talking to you, by the way. And coffee's not the problem. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking to the person that is overstimulated by coffee, is having anxiety attacks whilst drinking coffee, and all of the other kind of systemic dryness that comes with that if the terrain isn't suited from it, but just can't stop drinking it, but then wants to complain about the ways of the world. If you can't make and find the courageous bravery of adjusting one's own reality, then how dare you comment on reality moreover? In my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, how?
How? It's because they're offloading responsibility.
Of course. Absolutely.
It's easier to complain about what other people are doing. This is the analogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to be the person watching the UFC fight
Yes.
than be the UFC fighter.
Of course it is.
And it seems like what fighter? Who's on this weekend? Taporia. Oh, he could just fight a little bit different. If he could just do this, then it would be this. And then it's just like they're just sitting there fat as fuck with their beer, and it's like,
exactly.
shut the fuck up. Who are you to come in? Like, are you reaching your potential?
No, it's
I
the
feel-
people in the comments, right? It's like the people that want to teach in your comments, but don't have any of their own content.
I've been experiencing that shit for a long ass time.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's that. It's so fascinating. We're so fascinated. There's so much potential in that.
Yeah.
There is, right? There's so much potential in shadow. Like, truly.
That's what Jung said, that the shadow is unrealized potential.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Where else would it come from? I mean,
I personally get excited about my blind spots. Like, I love my, I mean, they're not shortcomings because everything is opportunity in my eyes, right? But when I highlight, like, and find the shadow aspect of myself, I get really excited because I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Like, to work with this, you know, what's possible?
what's possible once you stop operating from that state?
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets me excited.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're becoming more conscious of what is controlling you in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this idea a lot. It's this aura that we have around ourselves, and that if we are not in a state of fragmentation, that wholeness is something that radiates. That's what we call magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it's like when people project things onto you and you're operating from that state, then that just bounces off. But if it doesn't, then it can penetrate into your aura and you kind of allow that in, and then it like attaches to this kind of like in Buddhism, hungry ghost.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of attaches to that hungry ghost that's within, that's that fragmentation, or that some people say it's an entity.
Yep.
That part of us that is not operating from a state of wholeness, and then we're extracting from things to try to feel what I call pseudo wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, if you want to say what is a human game, I think that's like a major storyline,
Yeah.
a narrative arc that most people go through.
Yeah.
And it's like we're afraid of the antidote.
Oh my God. So afraid of the antidote.
That's the human condition.
Yeah.
We're afraid of the antidote to the thing that we are actually, in some sense, wrecking ourselves, and we're afraid to take the antidote. I have to code it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Totally.
we're actually kind of in the least cringiest way. We are genuinely, after studying so many humans, so many humans are afraid to love themselves,
Oh my goodness.
especially men.
Oh, I agree.
Especially men,
Yeah, I agree.
because there's so much programming around there.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much programming around men in the state of you are only worthy if you are doing something.
Yeah.
So then you're on this perpetual loop of, if you're not accomplishing things, then you are not actually worthy of love at all,
Yeah,
because you have no self-worth at all.
exactly.
That's part of the psyop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the antidote, in some sense, is to operate from that state of wholeness, which is integration, which is individuation, which is unity, which is harmony, which is synonymous with the language of what we call love.
Yeah.
In that, for oneself, when we can operate from that state, we can stop seeking it and trying to extract that from other people.
Oof.
And I feel most people are walking around trying to extract love from others because they're unwilling to give it to themselves, because of the conditioning they've been given around whether they deserve it or not. And so then they seek it in partners, or they can seek it in a car, in a house, in some sort of success, what I call a synthetic success loop, which is a loop that has been created to keep you looping
Yeah.
in a state of disempowerment or lack of wholeness or fragmentation, so that you don't actually reach a state of wholeness, because if you reach a state of wholeness, you would naturally connect to the creator or the intelligence of the game. And that's what I call a field disconnection. And field coherence is the state in which you're coherently connected to the field around you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And I think that's what a lot of Taoism, in speaking upon what the Tao, what we've had in our conversations, has been around that idea of it already is here. The harmony is already within, but there's duality to the game.
Yeah, totally. It's already here. There's nothing to find, merely unveil.
And then it comes down to, what are you actually? You know, there's layers of that. There's layers of the persona, the character. You keep going down. And it's what you said earlier, the I am.
Yeah, totally, that I am. But we're kind of bastardized into thinking that's selfish. like truly, right? It's like, oh, it's selfish. It's, it's bigger than you. Of course it's bigger than me, because I am only a fraction of it. I am one drop in the entire ocean, but I'm still the ocean in one drop. So therefore, surely it's a little bit of common sense to explore that one drop in order to understand the vastness of the ocean, and to be able to even not just experience it, but what's the word I'm looking for? Be an active participant in its shape-shifting.
Okay. I know that one of the biggest pieces of, I actually saw a video There's a video of somebody asking ChatGPT what the biggest psychological fragmentation kind of operation is.
Oh my gosh, I think I saw that video.
What did it say then? What did it say to you?
I can't remember, but
Okay.
it was very in-depth.
Well, the one I saw
Yeah.
was it basically said that you don't matter. That's the biggest. Could you pull that up?
Yes.
Tell me if that's what it is. I don't know if we've got the video. But I think it's around that concept. And it would make sense. And I think that's part of the, let me know when you got it, but that's part of the dichotomy of the choices we're given. Just like we're given, so another one of these operations, while he's looking that up, if there's a fragmentation operation, it's definitely around the two sides of the lose-lose scenario that we are put in. We must choose a losing scenario. And so, or disconnected
Yes.
is what I would say. Disconnected from truth. So I'm just going to be completely transparent.
Yeah.
The way I see it is the churchianity view or atheism.
Yep.
Okay, that's one of them in America.
Yep.
Then you have the left or the right. And then you have, you're either taking your treatments for or protocols for health are black and white. Go to the gym or you don't work out.
Yeah.
You know, artificial or sedentary.
Yes.
And that's what that's what it is. And then they morph and they switch throughout generations in history. If you look back through history, you see the same kind of manipulation of truth.
Yeah.
And I think that core code, like if we're talking about the things that I create, that's the core code I'm trying to teach people, especially, you know, in places where I have more time, which is like Master the Storm. It's to be able to recognize truth.
Yeah.
If humans, that's the core code I learned from Dr. Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins. It's humanity is in the situation that it's in because it cannot tell the difference between truth and falsehood. And if you want to boil down all of our issues, it would be that.
Yep.
Because if you could tell if something was true or not,
Yeah.
so that's the game. The entire human game, in some sense, is truth versus falsehood. And how to discern the difference.
Yeah. In yourself as well.
That is it. It has to be within yourself.
It has to
There's
be.
nowhere else.
No.
And that's the idea, is that the way people are manipulated is they outsource their ability to discern truth to someone else, especially through logic. So if it sounds logical, it's right.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And then you get in these synthetic loops of thinking. That's another false light loop, actually. The false light is I can tell you what something is true because it sounds right.
Yeah.
Versus is it in a state of coherence or decoherence? Because I think if we're having this conversation, you have to then define truth versus falsehood. I'm curious, if you were to define it, how would you define truth?
How would I define truth?
Versus falsehood. And if you don't want to answer, I can answer it. It's all good. I know it's a hard question.
Give me your answer.
Okay. I thought about this one a lot
I bet
in
you
my
have.
life. If I'm like, this is the nature of the game, I should probably have the answer to this, at least some coherent thought around it. The difference between truth and falsehood, it's the yin and yang in some sense.
Yes.
It's that same archetype. You could say that there are two fundamental forces and there's different dimensions and ways to describe these forces. One of those ways I find accurate is truth. Truth is part of the coherent force of the universe, or the harmonious force of the universe, or the force that is life-giving. You could even say life-defending in some sense. And falsehood is that which is with an alignment. It's in the essence of, and there's a threshold of truth versus falsehood. The life-separating force. This is what you've referred to as chaos throughout today. And so there's coherence, decoherence, there's entropy, coherence. So there's many words. But the idea is one of them you can actually feel in your body is true because it's coherent.
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually tell if we get quiet enough, we can actually tell within our body. That's what Dr. Hawkins used to say, that there's kinesiology muscle testing where
Mm-hmm.
you can hold your arm up and you can tell if something's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole process behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the essential premise of truth versus falsehood.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you're tuned into your own body, it knows what is already true and what's not.
Exactly.
Right? So we're talking about the interface.
Yeah, the interface.
Your body already can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
As in the persona of what you think is true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how people get tricked. And that's why I'm saying the dichotomy, if people actually were tuned in, they would be able to tell that it's false, false.
Mm-hmm.
False, false. There's more falsehood than there is truth. It's not that it's not doesn't have a level of like coherent things in it. An example of this is Dr. Hawkins used to calibrate all the books of the Bible, and there's certain interpretations of the Bible that calibrated at a higher level
Yeah.
than other interpretations. And I'm not saying it's all facts, but it's an interesting way to see reality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I would define truth.
Yeah.
Would you say that's accurate?
Imagine when you're saying about definement, like being able to refine that through the human physiology. The human physiology is the most attacked thing on the planet in every way, shape, or form. Because, like we were saying, when you refine the interface of your own unique information field and the information field moreover, then you start to receive and see and experience reality in a totally different way. Like totally. But even the idea of body, it's like we become obsessed with the idea of body, right? It's like people become obsessed with the body, but not as an overriding tool of experiencing reality, but another form of enslavement of their reality.
Or a means to an end.
Yeah, totally. Rather than seeing it as this absolutely magnificent piece of divine engineering that we have been given to architect reality with.
Imagine if we were inspired to be alive as a collective civilization. Imagine if we were just inspired to be alive. Imagine if we wanted to be alive.
Yeah,
What would life be like as humans?
totally.
It's a complete shift.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's where we're headed. That's the goal. At least that's what I'm trying to do. Tell people to see that.
You're doing a great job.
So are you. And so are you, brother. Did you find anything on that video?
I didn't find anything on it.
Some bitch. Okay. All right. We'll wrap up here. What would you say? What would you say to the human that thinks that they don't matter?
You matter just by being alive. The fact that you are even listening to this and you're able to look down at these fingers, that your heart is an automated service to your consciousness, that your breath is coming in and out eloquently of your lungs, that, you are this fully functioning, working piece of magnificence. Just to bring it back to the basics of that shows that you are enough. That's already enough. The fact that you're here in a body, doing God's work, baby.
And there it is. And there it is. It's been a great episode. Thank you for coming on to Human Game, chilling with us.
Thank
It's been
you
an
for having
absolute
me.
pleasure. Where can people find you? Where are you most active?
I mean, you can find me on the gram, obviously.
Insta.
Instagram at the Earth Oracle
We'll put that down below.
website. Put that down below. All of the things.
All right. We'll put all the links to your stuff in the description. I've really enjoyed this podcast. I feel like we
you.
covered so many different things. I'm really excited because I've wanted people to hear you for a minute. And I'm really glad that we got to sit down in person. It's very special instead of doing it online.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Thank you.
all the best to you.
And to you, good sir.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, what a brilliant conversation. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. If you're listening on audio platforms, follow the podcast. Give us that sweet, sweet nectar of that 5-star review. It really helps me out here at The Human Game. But check the link below to learn more about Master the Storm and join us. We begin 7/7 starting very soon. Don't miss out on this opportunity to really step up, to reach the potential that has been living dormant within you. It's time to actually activate that. That's what this training is all about. Look in the description to join. It's time. And that'll do it for this episode of The Human Game. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, peace.